why to handle or why to talk about sectarianism and sectarian media at this very moment and at this very given time. This is in fact what I'm going to try to address and answer in this talk. And before we start, if we think of the whole idea, the whole notion of sectarianism, sectarian practices, mentality, mindset, what comes maybe to our mind is what? Is that sectarianism is this, if you like, blind maybe allegiance, strong loyalty to one's own sect or subdivision within the bigger group. So you may belong to a religion or to ethnicity, then within this religion or ethnicity you have subdivisions and sects, then you choose one or you feel you were born maybe mostly within one of these subdivisions, and then you have this again very strong affinity and association with the sect, to the point of claiming that this sect does have the truth, quote unquote, and others they don't. And by this claim, of course, blindly thinking so, this leads to most of the time to what? To the demonizing of the other sect in this case, vilifying them and glorifying the self. So I am the person, I am the sect that holds the truth. And then I am engaged in this maybe politics and media discourses by which all other sects are discriminated against and seen as only maybe following heresy and the untrue path of this religion or ethnicity, so on and so forth. And because of my talk, we'll be focusing on the Arab region. So by talking about sectarianism, I will focus mostly on Sunni Shia sectarianism. Of course, there are some other forms of sectarianism in the region. Let's say Muslim, Christian sectarianism, as it is nowadays maybe happening in Egypt, a bit of sectarianism as well taking place in maybe in Iran as well. But my focus in this talk is on this overarching Sunni Shia divide, which is very unfortunate. Now, again, if we talk about this, how can we handle, how can we address this question? That is, why sectarianism now, at this given time and space and place maybe in the region, when we used to have the same sects, the same, if you like, distribution of ethnicities, religious affiliations. We used to have, historically speaking, the Sunni and Shia in the region for the past 14 centuries. Yes, of course, we used to have again, back in history, given or many periods of time where the relationship between these two sects used to be very tense and even sometimes very bloody. However, over let's say the past maybe century, we can claim that we used to witness some sort of coexistence, living together within acceptable kind of degrees. Yes, you have some pockets sometimes of tension and sectarian maybe conflicts, but by and large in the region, when we say in the region, say in Iraq, in Iran, in Syria, in Lebanon, all these countries, even in some of the Gulf countries, in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, there was some sort of quietness, let's say, harmony. So what happened that nowadays we have this the whole idea of sectarianism is peaking up really very sharply and in a very dangerous fashion. To answer this question, my attempt, and I hope I'll succeed in answering or trying, in fact, to answer this question, I'm going to handle this at the three levels. One, regional, the second is national, and then the third is societal, at this level of society. Then coming to the role of the media. So the role of the media, in fact, is only marginal. Yes, I am going to zoom into this, the role of the media, but we have to understand the bigger picture, the wider context within which media is functioning as other agencies maybe of social and political life in the region. So now, when we say at the regional level, the very maybe the biggest picture of all, at the regional level, my claim is the following: that we can date the emergence of sectarianism in the region by the Iranian Revolution back in 1979, and with it the Saudi Arabian reaction. So we have these two forces coming together, which is one action then reaction. The action is the Iranian Revolution, and the reaction is the Saudi Arabian and even Gulf and Arab reaction to the revolution. And why I'm saying this? I'm saying this because of the following. Number one, Khomeini, the leader of the revolution, made it very clear and blunt that he is the leader of all Muslims, Imam al-Muslimin. So he is not only the Imam or the leader of the Shia Muslims, he said he is the leader of all Muslims globally, including, of course, Sunnis in the region and Sunnis and Shias, even beyond. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, Malaysia, you have now a leader. This leader is Khomeini. And of course, this was very frightening, very scary to the neighboring countries, well, especially the Saudi Arabia leadership. In Saudi Arabia, you have Al Saud, the monarchs there, claiming to be, maybe tacitly, not as spoken out as in the case of Khomeini, but tacitly they say, well, we are the protectors of the holiest spaces and places in Islam. So again, by agreement, by gentleman agreement, people would look at us in Saudi Arabia as the leaders, if you like, as the people who would have the final say when it comes to any pan-Islamic issues. Yes, there is no rivalry maybe, there is no, let's say, papacy in Islam, but we are at the forefront when it comes to anything to do with leadership in the Muslim world. This is the claim, this is the conviction of the Saudi Arabia leadership. Now you have somebody who is challenging this to the core, saying, in fact, no, it's me, Khomeini, who would speak from now on in the name of all Muslims and in the name of all or their grievances. If there is any cause for Muslims, I am the man who would lead any Muslim effort in that direction. I am the address of all Muslims who are weakened, who are maybe defeated. I am even the supporter and backer of all the oppressed, not only Muslims but also non-Muslims. So this is one big claim that was put forward by Khomeini and the Iranian Revolution. Even to make things worse, you have another claim. Not a claim, in fact, a strategy or policy, or that is our goal, our ultimate goal in the Iranian Revolution is what? Is to export this revolution in the neighboring countries and beyond. So you have the notion, the idea of exporting the revolution. So the Iranian Revolution is in fact Islamic revolution. And the Islamic revolution belongs to all Muslims. And because of this, of course, it should go beyond the Iranian territorial national boundaries. So it should go and spill over into the neighboring countries first, as this is the immediate stage, and then to all other countries. And if you were, let's say, in Iraq, or in maybe Bahrain, neighboring to Iran, you would feel deeply scared. This is a very blunt, very vocal argument saying, in fact, I am coming to you. And why is this? Because you are oppressing your people and you are not ruling them in the name of Islam. I am coming to save them, to rescue them from your oppression. So now you have these two things. One is again the claim to talk and to lead in the name of all Muslims, and the second claim that is we are coming to export our revolution into your countries. The reaction, the Saudi reaction, was very immediate. That this is very dangerous, of course, and we have to build some sort of shield in front of this danger, intellectual danger, religious danger, and maybe even military danger. and as it was manifested later on in the war between Iran and Iraq. Now, our focus is maybe not war on military, but intellectual and religious kind of debating. The Saudi Arabia, one of the reactions, one of the mobilizations that the Saudis thought it would have a great power in the face of the rising Iranian revolution, which is Shia fundamentally at the heart of it. It's a Shia thing, and this was enshrined in the constitution of the Islamic Republic in Iran. It says in Article maybe 1 or 2, the religion of the state is not Islam only, it's Islam / Shia and the Twelver. So it's even the one sect of Shia Islam, which is the Twelver. The Twelver means number 12 of the Imamate. Long story about in the Shia Twelver sect, they have 12 Imams, starting with Ali, who is the cousin of Prophet Muhammad, then his son, and then the line of the family of Ali. So all the grandsons of Ali, they belong to this line of Imams. And the number 12, in fact, disappeared, or he was hidden in some way, and this is why, because all Sunnis are after him to kill him. So, in fact, we are waiting for the Imam number 12 to reappear so that he can spread justice and fairness across the globe. So this is the conviction. This is one of the main pillars of the Twelver sect of Shia. So again, in the constitution, this is, now you have a revolution, you have a state saying, well, I rule Muslims, I will even rule Muslims even beyond Iran in the name of Shia, posing or perceived by its neighboring countries as a threat and danger. Now, to stand against this, again, back to the Saudi Arabia reaction, they said the first thing, maybe not the first thing, but the most effective thing, is to highlight the Shia nature of this revolution. So you are not kind of very general kind of Muslim revolution, you are not a very general kind of Muslim leader, you are a Shia, in fact, Shia Muslim. And by highlighting this fact, it's an open invitation to the extreme voices within Sunni Islam to say, well, look at this. These Shias, whom we even suspect their Islam, are even claiming to lead us, and they are coming after us, and they want to lead us. And these radical and most extremist voices, they come from, say, the Salafi and Wahhabi establishment within Saudi Arabia and even beyond. So now you have two extremes. One extreme within the Shia faith, and another extreme within the Sunni faith. And the Saudis, they mobilized these voices so that to expose the Iranian claim and the claims of Khomeini and say, hey, fellow Muslim, hey, fellow Sunnis, don't believe and don't think that Khomeini is a true Muslim. In fact, he is a Shia, only Shia Muslim. And by being so, he doesn't have the legitimacy even to compete, even to present himself as a Muslim for all Sunnis. Now, I am going into these kind of things, though now in history, but just to know the foundations, the context, that it started, in fact, in late 1970s with this big historical event for myself, for me, and from my perspective. And one incident maybe you came across now and then, every now, it pops up in the media, just an evidence to prove this kind of rivalry over leadership in the Muslim world. That is the fatwa against Salman Rushdie. Maybe you heard of this? Anybody know? Salman Rushdie? Yeah? Salman Rushdie, a Muslim Indian writer, British. He wrote a very famous, maybe, or infamous book, The Satanic Verses, against the Prophet Muhammad and his wives and the Sunnah. And then Khomeini in 1981, I guess, he issued a fatwa against him. A fatwa saying this book is not only against Prophet Muhammad and Islam, in fact, the author of this book should be killed. So this is fatwa coming from who? Coming from the leader of all Muslims. So this comes at the moment when Khomeini wanted to prove this point, to say if anything harms Muslims or harms anything to do with our religion, it's me, Khomeini, who would stick his neck out and go after any offender. You, the Saudis, or anybody else can do this. So in fact, this fatwa, because every now and then you have, maybe every single month you have a book or something against Islam or against Christianity. So what is it about that single book? Just to be pinpointed and then the author is threatened and you have a fatwa against him. In fact, to have a context for this, the context is this rivalry, is that Khomeini wanted to make this point, that if something bad happens to Muslims, to our Prophet, our religion, our sacred book, our Quran, it's me who would stand against anybody who thinks of offending Islam. And in fact, embarrassing the Saudis, because it wouldn't even occur to the Saudis to issue a fatwa against somebody like Salman Rushdie. They have very, not only moderate, I would say, timid maybe politics vis-a-vis these incidents. So this is, since then in fact, we started to have this kind of divide in the region. In certain times, maybe kind of very tacit, very mild. In other times, it would go above the surface and it takes different forms and shapes. It could be manifested in certain, let's say, countries, maybe in Lebanon, where you have Hezbollah now emerging after the Iranian Revolution as a very strong party in Lebanon, Shia-based party, and then the Saudis would start to support the other side in Lebanon. In Iraq and elsewhere, in Bahrain as well, where you have a significant Shia, I wouldn't say community because they may even outnumber the Sunnis in Bahrain, you have now strong support coming from Iran to the Shia of Bahrain. So you started these kind of sentiments boiling up, in fact, in the region because of this rivalry. And then you have these two countries somehow competing over influence, over allegiance, over buying, loyalties from different parties, different organizations, even Sunnis and so this is, if you like, at the very regional level. This is the biggest picture. Then we come down to the national picture, so that we can see what is happening in many of the Arab countries. Now, in the region, in the Mashriq at least, when say we in the Mashriq, we mean say Syria, Iraq, the Gulf countries, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, this kind of area, as opposed as to the Maghreb countries, when we mean Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Mauritania. Now, in the Mashriq, and this in fact applies to the Maghreb, but let's focus on the Mashriq. At the very national level now, in the post-colonial era, after the decolonization and gaining independence in most of these Arab countries, what kind of picture, what kind of evolution we can witness? We can see, and this, if we go retrospectively, and let's say with the Iranian Revolution, let's say 1980, 79-80, so we have 40 years maybe, or half a century of independence. The picture was, and in fact is still bleak. Most of these countries, they failed in building viable societies, strong societies in terms of politics, economy, sociality, and citizenship. Most of these countries, most of these states are based on authoritarian regimes. You have a group of people on the top, be them a tribe, a family, a monarch, or a group of military officers who had a military coup, then controlled the country for 2-3 decades. Different forms of authoritarian rule, but fundamentally you have authoritarianism there. Now, many of these authoritarian regimes as well, to legitimize themselves, they felt the need to borrow different pillars, different foundations from different stuff. If they were in the Gulf, they would say, well, our tribe, our family has been ruling this area for centuries, and in fact, we are the continuation of historical rule in this area. Now it takes the shape of a nation state, but previously it used to be some maybe different polity. So we are a continuation of a historical kind of line of governance. If it was, let's say, in Jordan, maybe this is one part of legitimacy, one borrowing to justify why we are ruling you in the name of our tribe or family. Another justification, let's say in Jordan and Morocco, that is, guess what, the king himself and his family, they go back to the family of a Prophet Muhammad himself. So they are the descendants of a Prophet Muhammad, the Hashemites, or the king of Morocco, Muhammad VI and his father and his grandfather as well. So again, these justifications to avoid any democratic, any freedom-based politics, and to say, well, we have another justification. In Egypt, in Jamal Abdel Nasser days, or in Syria and Iraq, you have now some military officers. They would organize a military coup, then they would rule their countries, and they would say, well, we are the nationalist forces who managed to drive out the forces, the reactionary forces who used to be very loyal to the West. So these puppet rulers who used to be only Western inclined, plundering the wealth of the nation, now have been ended by us. So we have a legitimacy of bringing a nationalist polity to the country. However, maybe across the board, be it tribal, monarchical, republican, or based on claims that we belong to the Prophet Muhammad, you have one single thing, a thread, a main thread, that is borrowing from Islam and religion. And saying, despite we came to power, or by tribe, or by monarch, Islam in fact is the religion of the state. And this again enshrined in Article 2 almost in every single Arab constitution. So what is it? Why people just go there and say Islam is the state of is the religion of the state? The state has no religion, if you like, I mean, in the modern sense of the word. If you have a nation state, you have nation and the state. The state is the structure. The nation comprises citizens, individuals. So this is the identification of these individuals. They are identified by their belonging to the state, the nation. So religion is somehow imposed in this modern construct. You can say, well, this is an Islamic state, this is a Christian state, this is a Jewish state, where everybody is identified by their religion. But to say a modern state, then you have religion into the whole structure. There is some idea, there is some justification. Again, this is another borrowing to have legitimacy to rule the people. You say, don't worry that we inherited this small unit maybe after the Ottoman Empire, which was a pan-Islamic system, and now we ended up with a set of fragmented countries, but we are protector of Islam. Well, military officers, yes, but we have Islam. I am just alluding to this to lead me to one single point, that this dangerous mix of religion and politics started from early on in the post-colonial Arab state, in pursuing the justification of the ruling elite. Again, be it tribal, be it republican, be it military officers, so on and so forth. But they wanted badly to justify their rule. So they would borrow different fragments of legitimacy from different sources. And they used Islam to say, well, Islam, in Article 2 in the Constitution, Islam is the religion of the state, and not only this, the source of lawmaking and legislation, which had in fact backfired later on. Because if you put this in the Constitution, people would go there, your opponents now, and say, hey, guess what? Because this is, again, it was a claim, and then you have mostly secular kind of ruling elites ruling these countries. And so you have this kind of dichotomy. In the Constitution, you are saying Islam, and then in practice, you are doing something that is seen in the eyes of many Islamists now as un-Islamic. So they would go to the constitution and say, you are un-Islamic, in fact. Your practice and your politics are un-Islamic against the constitution itself. So in a way, and this is maybe digressing from our talk, so in a way, many Islamist parties nowadays in the region, they are fundamentally constitutional. They can go back to the constitution and say, we belong to the constitution and our demands in implementing the Sharia are constitutional, because in the constitution it says Islam is the religion of the state and Islam is the main source of legislation. But this is a side point, well, not a marginal point, very big point, but not our talk for today. Now, the whole idea of this dangerous mix between religion and politics, over 4 or 5 decades, it paved, in fact, the way for any future sectarianism. Because you have the discourse of religion, the discourse of all these kind of, the mix of religion and politics is already there. So the ground is, in fact, fertile to any sinister exploitation of any religious claim that may happen in the future. So my point here, in this very maybe long introduction, is just to say that you have evolving context. You have a very receptive context to any sectarian claims that will take place in the future. Now, one ironic dimension in this system, the nation state vis-a-vis religious and maybe sectarian politics, is the following. As we have seen in the case of Saudi Arabia, and this happens and occurs in many other cases in the future, sectarian politics are used and exploited to defend the state as politics of